Welcome to We Get Work and the Year Ahead 2025 podcast series. This year, our special report and corresponding podcast series are created to help you move forward steadily, seamlessly, and successfully in a workplace law environment in persistent flux. Jackson Lewis invites you and others at your organization to experience the report's legislative, regulatory, and litigation insights in full at our website, jacksonlewis.com, or listen to the podcast series on whichever platform you turn to for compelling content.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be discussing what employers can expect with regard to employees who have pending asylum applications, temporary protected status, who may have immigration benefits through humanitarian parole programs, and DACA during the upcoming Trump administration.
And this is really based on what we've experienced with the past Trump administration and based on promises made during the campaign trail. So it's nothing that we know are going to happen 100% with 100% guarantee, but things that we can reasonably expect.
Definitely. I'll start off with asylum and TPS. Many employees have pending asylum applications, and as a result of their pending asylum applications, they have work authorization cards. While we don't expect asylum to be revoked or rescinded under the Trump administration, we do expect that it will become more difficult to get asylum applications granted, that wait times for interviews will become longer, and that there may be some changes to the way work authorization documents are processed and granted in relation to asylum applications. With regard to temporary protected status, just by way of very brief background, certain countries have been designated for temporary protected status, meaning citizens of that country can live and work in the United States pursuant to these designations as a result of a catastrophe that occurred in that country. A major example is Haiti, with the earthquake that occurred in 2010, or more recently, the war in Ukraine. As well as the current economic crisis in Venezuela. All three of those are countries that are designated for TPS. Individuals who have temporary protected status obtain work authorization on the basis of their temporary protected status. During the last Trump administration, he tried to rescind temporary protected status. There were extensive court challenges to these efforts, and as a result, temporary protected status survived the last Trump administration. We expect that there will be similar efforts to rescind the programs during this administration. So it's extremely important that employers look at how many of their employees are working pursuant to temporary protected status and speak with immigration counsel to explore other options for these employees.
Yes. When it comes to humanitarian parole, by way of background, it's a special permission that is granted to individuals to either enter the United States or to remain in the United States. It's typically granted for between 1 to 2 years or more, and individuals under these programs are typically granted work authorization as well. And we expect that many of, the recent programs, the Operation Allies Welcome for Afghans, Uniting for Ukraine for Ukrainians, and the special process for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. We expect that a lot of employees hold EADs under these programs currently. And so if these programs were to end under the Trump administration, we'd expect to see USCIS stopping the issuance of special travel authorization for individuals who are outside of the United States and have these applications pending. For those within the U.S., depending on your the employee's nationality, the outcome might be different. Under all these categories, the individuals might potentially be eligible for asylum. When it comes to Afghan nationals, they have special pathways to obtain a green card. Ukrainians can fall back on TPS if they're eligible. Not all Ukrainian parolees would be eligible. It depends on when they entered the country. The same goes for Haitians and Venezuelans. Depending for TPS, they could potentially rely on that depending on when they entered the country. Nicaraguans don't really have other pathways at the moment other than asylum or potential family-based applications. And so it's also important for employers to sort of identify which employees will be potentially affected because they might, have to let go of these employees if they lose parole and work authorization based on that parole.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, anyone who is in the United States can apply for asylum at any time. However, there are risks and benefits associated with applying for asylum after you've been here for a certain length of time. So again, it's very important for these employees to consult with immigration counsel before deciding to apply for asylum if they have not already done so. Pivoting a little bit to DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. This is another program that targets or is available to individuals who were brought to the United States as children by their parents before a certain date. Again, these individuals are able to obtain work authorization based upon their DACA status. During the last Trump administration, there were efforts to rescind and revoke DACA. Again, there were court challenges similar to temporary protected status. And DACA is still around. Again, we don't know what will happen under the incoming administration. So it's very important to evaluate how many employees you have who have DACA status and to look into other potential options for these employees.
Just another quick note on humanitarian parole programs. The one for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, the Biden administration has already indicated that these individuals will not be eligible for reparole. So this is something that, we're expecting will end, whether or not the Trump administration takes action on it. And so individuals can still apply and be eligible to come to the U.S. under this administration until further notice, but they are expecting to only be able to remain here based on their initial 2-year parole. And another thing that we had experienced during the past Trump administration travel bans just immediately after he took office. And so we're expecting that some of those might make a comeback. Perhaps the same countries with countries added, who knows, but employers should be aware of those bans. They should perhaps monitor their employees' travels, particularly business travel, so that they're not stuck abroad and unable to return to the U.S. And another thing to keep in mind is that there might be more raids, more site visits. So we want employers to also start preparing for those by doing internal audits or contacting immigration attorneys to help them with those audits and make sure that, all their employees' records are checked.
Just to piggyback off of what Sarah said, if you have employees who potentially need to travel abroad before January 20th or will not return until after January 20th, it is very important to consult with immigration counsel to make sure that they don't run the risk of becoming stuck outside the country. Similarly, if you have employees who are currently outside the country, you want to speak with immigration counsel to make sure that they're going to be able to get back in post-January 20th if they're not scheduled to return until after that date. With regard to potential worksite enforcement and I-9 audits, now is definitely the time to get your I-9 paperwork in order. It's contact immigration counsel. You want to correct as many possible errors as possible now before there is stepped up enforcement, before there are worksite visits. A lot of employers have, very innocent mistakes on their I-9s, or, employees have expired work authorization and they don't even realize it. These are things immigration counsel can help with and protect employers from liability before the enforcement starts.
That's all we have for today. So stay tuned for more updates from us if, anything comes up. And feel free to reach out to us or any other immigration attorneys from the Jackson Lewis team.
Absolutely. We'd love to help.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Year Ahead 2025 Special Edition podcast series. Please tune in to future episodes where we will continue to tell you not only what's legal, but what is effective. Our We Get Work podcast is available to stream and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as jacksonlewis.com. If you enjoyed these episodes, we encourage you to share any or all of them with your network and leave a review to help others find us. We would love to hear your suggestions for future topics, or if you're interested in being a guest on our show, please reach out to us at weatwork@jacksonlewis.com. Thank you for tuning in.